Who's the best high school prospect you've ever seen play? Dean Legge, Matt DeBerry, Dawg Post making you a smarter Georgia fan. Matt, I'm going to start with you. Not every prospect that's a 5-star is the best player we've ever seen. Obviously, there can only be one of those. Who are you going to go with?
It's got to be Trevor Lawrence for me. I've been on the Trevor train since I saw him as a freshman at Cartersville. I got to know the staff there and Trevor and his family really well. But, the first time I went up there and actually saw him, I think it was the spring after his freshman season. And you knew then that you might have something special. There was an Ole Miss scout there. They had the radar gun. They watched him throw a few. The coach looked at it, offered him on the spot right there after practice. And it just started going from there. I think later that summer we both saw him at the Mark Richt camp, I guess it was back then. And everyone knows that story if they've heard us talk about this before. But Trevor was outstanding. I still think he's the best high school prospect I've ever seen. I told my buddies right after that I think Trevor was going to be a future Pro Bowler one day, and I still think that. So he was good the day I saw him, and he's only gotten better ever since. So got to go with Trevor there.
Saw Trevor Lawrence for sure several times actually, and he's certainly up there for me. And by the way, I do think he will be a future All Pro, not just Pro Bowl. Well,
Right.
All Pro, definitely Pro Bowl, but
Potential's there for All Pro, but
no question. I'm not sure the potential for Zamir White is to be an All Pro, but the night I saw him play was unbelievable, and that was of course not soon after I'd seen guys like Trevor go. So in my pantheon of seeing guys, and you didn't go through this, but AJ Green, Aaron Murray, Jarvis Jones, Ben Jones. Ben Jones was a really good high school football player. But in terms of best prospect, I remember leaving Scotland County High School or Scotland High School. They get real jittery about that up there. After watching Zamir go up against Charlotte's Mallard Creek, who had won the state championship in North Carolina the year before. And I remember thinking to myself, I've never seen anything really close to this. What he did that night was amazing. It was something like 300 all-purpose yards. He could stop and start. It was a stunning display of athleticism, the likes of which I have not seen since or before. And the problem with people always want to see the receipts, for lack of a better word. With Trevor, we've seen what he's done at Clemson. He's won the national championship. He's played another national championship game. He's not won the Heisman Trophy yet, but that's still a realm of possibility. With Zamir, from the time I saw him to the time that he played at Georgia, he had 2 ACL injuries, and he was a different guy. And I think he's a different back right now at Georgia going into the 2020 season than he was. Trevor's never dealt with that, but we don't know what the future is when we see these guys, and that's what's so important here is, like when I watched Aaron Murray play live, you could tell he was special because he could just do stuff other guys couldn't do.
Well, I remember that night you saw Zamir White because it was the same night where I saw Justin Fields and Adam Anderson play against each other. And Go ahead.
Yeah, Justin's in my top 5. He was really good.
Very good that night. Adam Anderson sacked him like 3 times, and Rome was just a better team. But Justin Fields looked like one of the top prospects in the country, and he was. But that's when he was on top of the world. When his recruitment was the biggest deal out there, and he was still considering in Georgia, obviously, but Florida State and a few other teams were there. So that was a big deal, and I remember watching that game, and I talked to you about how good Justin Fields was, and you said, man, Zamir White might be the best high school player I've ever seen. And so that was definitely a big night, and I remember you telling me that when it happened.
And Andrew Thomas was a really good high school player. DeAndre Swift was a really good high school player. When you go see, I'm trying to look at the board here to see other guys I've seen play. These are just guys at Georgia, for instance.
Derek Brown is up there for me, too. Derek Brown was a monster when I saw him.
Derek Brown was dominant, and he should be certainly a first-round pick in the NFL.
He's not going by the Panthers. They're taking him at 7, but he was outstanding. So was Mecole.
I was just going to say Mecole Hardman was really good. And by the way, Jacob Eason was really good too, but he made mistakes when I saw him play. But the arm, I'll tell you what, when I saw Jacob play, I had to catch a red-eye back all the way to Atlanta for a game that kicked off at Georgia at noon. And I remember after the first quarter of the game that I saw Jacob play, I thought this guy could be the best quarterback I've ever seen play, period, including Matthew Stafford. But the problem was I saw the second quarter and he was just completely inconsistent. And that's what happens. But it's hard to be inconsistent when you're Zamir White and you're a running back. And by the way, this conversation has skill player bias. We're not, I
Yeah.
mean, we mentioned Derek Brown. We didn't mention, I mean, I said I saw Andrew Thomas play, but, it's just one of these things where the skill guys should wow you. And I know Trevor wowed me, Justin wowed me for sure, but Zamir was like something I have never seen and haven't seen since. I would love to be able to see him just because of getting to know him a little bit during covering him and recruiting. I would love to see him show what he can really do.
I really like Keely Ringo. It's hard to put him in that top group just because at cornerback they didn't go his way and he didn't make a ton of tackles, but they put him on offense and let him run and make plays, and he was really outstanding. And then another guy I saw, Nolan Smith. He didn't disappear at all when I saw him going at it. He was very, very good. He's a guy that we saw years before. We got to cover him 3 or 4 years of high school with him bouncing around, but he was really, really good. But Derek Brown might be the best defender at the high school level that I've seen so far.
He was better than Roquan Smith was in high school, but Derek single-handedly destroyed any notion that Cedar Shoals would get a first down when I watched them play. And Mecole Hardman played them 2 weeks later, and what Mecole Hardman did to them on offense was I felt bad for Cedar Shoals that night. But our top two, Matt with a very stellar pick of Trevor Lawrence, Cartersville quarterback, and I went with Scotland, North Carolina's Zamir White. Make sure to check out the top 3 players that we think could be an impact in Georgia's 2020 class right above.